18th. It wasn't until the 24th that they responded to my email at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. But previous to that day, on the 24th, I sent a Facebook message saying, hey, y'all, I sent y'all an email. You know, I'd like to try to get with y'all. They requested plans, revised plans for the property going forward. I sent those the next day on the 25th. It took them 11 days to review the plans, and they sent me an email Monday, November 5th, asking that we could be there on the 18th for a meeting date. At that time, they said they weren't sure when they could get with us. So that's why we weren't there on the 8th. We only had 3 days notice of when the meeting would be. We already had prior commitments. So it wasn't because we didn't want to be there. You can see by the emails that I sent and asked for meetings to talk about this input going forward. The plans may have removed a bigger portion off the rear of the house. The previous waiver was for 8, which the back wall would now be fire rated. The interior side wall will be fire rated according to code. The interior side yard, as you may remember, is an existing side yard. We haven't moved the side of the building. The only part of the building that we moved is the back of the building, and I say we, but the previous contractor. And that's another issue in my letter to the board that we addressed, that the previous contractor and the professional of record that designed plans did not inform the owner that he could not build that building like that. I know it's not an excuse, but the contractor before did not get the right permitting, and it's now snowballed into where we are now. So I hope that the proposed plans is something that the board can consider. And then the rear side of the house also abuts a commercial drive. So there's several environmental factors that go to this specific lot that are lot specific that I believe reduce some of the issues and concerns from the code. And some of the items that Ms. Layla has brought up for endangerment of the public. There's only 2 houses on that block face. The property that we're talking about and the property directly next door, and they're built almost exactly the same way. Same yard setback on both sides, rear and side. So I don't see any special privileges to my client in particular by allowing this variance.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
So I understand the conversation regarding the side yard setback and establishing the condition of the building, but I still need to see a little bit more color and even try to address this rear yard setback. I understand the condition that it was someone built it beforehand. That's still not necessarily something that provides a means or mechanism for us to feel comfortable. That I feel comfortable still write that waiver, but could you add more color to, or at least sway? My opinion in terms of the 9-point criteria that the rear yard is justifiable.
I believe that the rear yard is justifiable by 2 things. The rear yard backs into directly a commercial drive. The commercial drive, I believe, is only 12 feet wide. If they were ever able to sell that piece of property between our property and the property on Willow Street that would be behind the commercial drive, there would not be sufficient amount of room for anyone to build on that property. So we're not worried about anybody in the future buying a property where it'd be a fire hazard because our property is too close to the rear yard. So like I said, there's a commercial drive. We are removing a part of the building, I think it's 6 foot and 6 inches. We're removing the porch. So the roof line will now end at 13 feet from the rear yard setback. That whole entire rear facing part of the building will be fire rated according to code. So I don't know any other things that we could do to try to get as close to compliance without removing a substantial part of the building that's already built. But yeah, those are the 2 conditions, because the commercial drive I think is a little more favorable to us, as well as the fire rating for safety hazards.
Steph, can you give me clarity on what was the existing condition of the rear setback?
The rear setback,
the previous condition is when the structure was at least last occupied.
6.5 feet. question, again, to the applicant, and looking over the, responses to the 9 criteria, I believe that was one of the, concerns that we had in the last meeting, was just to go back and adjust the 9 criteria. One of the questions, related to number 6 is the, demonstrating a demonstrable hardship. To me, the response seems to still, I mean, in the response it says that the request is an inconvenience based on what changes would have to be made. And the question says that it has to be distinguished from being an inconvenience, but your response seems to suggest the same thing.
I understand that. I believe for the future, like I said before in my previous opening, that if this ends up being sold and another potential buyer looks at this property and this information has to be given to them because this is a condition of this property, I think that might put any buyer, because they know this process is difficult. So that in itself, to me, is a hardship. Not only for this owner, but for a potential owner. And I know that the city of New Orleans, it is an inconvenience for him financially, and that can make or break a project, as y'all know. I don't know if the board considers that a good hardship for
Well, I think the challenge is that when there's, as I think we said before, definitely when we said it during the last meeting, that when there are alternatives that exist that could be done without having to request the variance as stated, that's what makes it difficult. It's not to say that that's the whole purpose of demonstrating a hardship, that there are no reasonable alternative or possible alternatives that could be done. But in this situation, and I think Commissioner James has brought up, as well as the last meeting we discussed, that there were some alternatives, that it makes it hard to say that it's a hardship if there's an alternative that exists.
And to that point, I think, so a lot of your commentary just now was based in the financial side, and one of our 9 criteria is exactly that, that it does not provide a financial hardship to the applicant. So I think last time I mentioned, we're looking at, I think initially the plan showed that it may have been a 3-bedroom unit that was converted into a 4. Anyone knows the more number of bedrooms you add, the higher revenue you get if you were to rent this property. So there's a cost benefit back to that applicant. We're also dealing with the standpoint of, you made the mention about if the property was to be sold. So I think the intent of the zoning is to try to protect density in neighborhoods. That's why the setbacks are established the way they are in terms of the limit and number of dwellings per lot area, which is not what we're looking at from the waiver, but that's how the course of development is established across town. So when we see applications like this, especially when we get into Douglas, which we know is going to end up turning into a form of rental property, it makes it substantially harder to grant it, understanding there's a financial benefit to the person that's coming in from that request. And if anyone wants to buy property, whoever they're dealing with from a realtor, broker standpoint, or even future contractor or design professional, they all have a fiduciary responsibility back to the applicant to inform them that the zoning does not allow them to have what they're potentially attempting to buy, so that they won't come in front of us asking for a waiver at a later date. So that's just kind of taking into account what I stated last month as well as where we are now. I think it kind of supports the point of that.
Well, and my comment would be, the rear yard, of course, is an inconvenience, but to get the house into compliance with the interior side yard, we have to put the whole house up on cribbing and move the house over 9 inches. So it's almost to demolish the building and build new to get us into compliance. So
And as I stated last month, my issue isn't the side yard, because I understand that build condition exists across town. My biggest concern is really the rear yard. Once a house has been substantially demolished to some capacity, it's lost its non-conformity. That's the trigger that's causing this question right now. The reason why I asked the question earlier to staff about what was the existing condition of the old setback, yes, we know what that was, but a case was created by whomever the previous owner was, and then exacerbated by the current owner. So it really makes it hard to really try to push in the other direction.
Right, I understand that. So the previous setback was at 6'6", and now we're requesting to 13 feet, which I believe is more of a safety improvement. And like I said before, there's only 2 houses on that block base. The house directly next door to us has the same condition, if not less, of a rear yard setback. And that was done without permitting also. I'm not saying they did it, we can do it, but I'm saying it's not a unusual site or house condition for that street, or particularly just for that block.
Say 13 feet. I'm just curious which.
So I did it previously without actually measuring from the next sill. So my plan was as a contractor is to go from sill to fence, and that would be easier for us to reconstruct that back. So the 12.6 came off of my measurement from the plans, and when when the architect actually went to site, he measured from sill to fence, it was the 13.
Except for letter.
Right. That makes sense.
What is the size of that last bedroom? What is the depth?
Also, if they're measuring the fence, that fence isn't on the property line.
So it'd be hard, I mean, even in that case, just knowing if it was put to that point, it's not verified that it's sits on the property owner. If we were to even grant a certain number right now, that could still be held. Because if it had good property survey.
Looks like their own survey shows that the fence is, what, an inch? 1.4 at one point, and maybe 1.5 at another point.
It looks like the last bedroom is 10 by 12.
Yeah, it's shown as a variable distance of 1.4 and 1.5 from the property line. The iron set side is set at 1.4, and on the Willow Street side it's 1.5. Even if we were to get in a side yard setback conversation, the fence line has to be reset, because there's other code requirements that.
If they're going to answer that, the back bedroom.
Yeah, it's yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the measure, they were saying it's 10 square feet, sorry.
Criteria seen
The
at
property owner, but it looks like there's some things on this property that are going to need to be worked out regardless, and if they're starting to make changes to the rear of the structure, they may want to consider that in total.
well, and even in that case, I mean, because this is a residential use, because it's a bedroom, it was also by building code, we also need to have the opening within that bedroom. So to that point, I mean, we start applying code after point, really not like no further impacts, considering that it's an existing condition that was the existing nonconformity is expired due to the definition. Madam Chair,
Regard to not get